The unexpected encounter. The silence of deep space was broken only by the steady hum of the Pioneer's dream as it drifted through the uncharted sector known as the Void's Edge. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the viewport where distant stars painted patterns across the darkness. She was 42 years old, with short auburn hair and a face marked by years of making difficult decisions. This mission was supposed to be routine. Chart the sector, gather scientific data, return home. Nothing about the last 3 months had suggested otherwise. Lieutenant James Park sat at the navigation console, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. He was young, barely 28, but his skill with stellar cartography had earned him a place on this expedition. Beside him, Dr. Rachel Foster monitored the ship's scientific instruments, her gray eyes scanning readouts that measured everything from radiation levels to gravitational anomalies. They were professionals, the best Earth had to offer, sent to explore the unknown reaches of space where humanity had never ventured. The alarm changed everything. It started as a low pulse, then grew into an urgent wail that filled the bridge. Every console flashed red simultaneously. Elena's stomach dropped as she watched the sensor display light up with contacts. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. Ships appearing from nowhere, materializing out of the void as if reality itself had torn open to birth them. James turned to face her, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Captain, we have massive energy signatures surrounding us. Configuration unknown. Technology beyond anything in our databases." He paused, swallowing hard. "There are 374 vessels in formation around us. All of them are armed." Rachel looked up from her station, her face pale. "Captain, the energy readings are off the scale. Some of these ships are generating power equivalent to a small star. If they wanted to destroy us, we would already be gone." She hesitated. "I think they want to talk." Elena felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders like iron. This was first contact. Not the peaceful meeting humanity had imagined, not the hopeful exchange of knowledge between equals. This was an ambush, a show of overwhelming force designed to intimidate. She straightened her uniform and nodded slowly. "Open all communication channels. Let's hear what they have to say." The main viewport flickered and changed. What appeared before them was unlike anything they had imagined. The being was tall, perhaps 9 feet, with skin that seemed to shift between deep purple and black like oil on water. Its body was humanoid but elongated, with limbs that bent in too many places. The head was crested with what might have been bone or crystal, and its eyes glowed with inner light, 3 of them arranged in a triangle on its face. When it spoke, the words came through their translation systems with perfect clarity, though the underlying sounds were like music played on instruments that should not exist. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the being said, its voice carrying weight and authority that transcended language. "I am Ambassador Theln of the Dracorian Collective, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council. You have entered regulated space. Your presence here is noted and must be addressed according to established protocols." Elena stepped forward, aware that every word she spoke now would echo through history. "I am Captain Elena Voss of the Earth vessel Pioneer's Dream. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. We had no knowledge that this space was claimed by any authority. We apologize for any intrusion and will adjust our course accordingly." Theln's expression, if it could be called that, remained unchanged. "Your ignorance of council law is understandable. Your species is young, newly emerged into the greater cosmos. The council has monitored your development for some time. You have reached the threshold of interstellar capability. Therefore, you must now be integrated into the galactic community. This is not optional. This is how civilization functions." Something in those words made Elena's blood run cold. The way Theln spoke of integration, the certainty in his tone, the assumption that humanity's choices were irrelevant. She glanced at James and Rachel, seeing her own concern reflected in their faces. "What does integration entail?" she asked carefully. Theln gestured, and a holographic document appeared in the space between them. It scrolled slowly, revealing page after page of dense text. "The standard protocols are comprehensive," he explained. "First, you will provide complete biological data for your species. Genetic records, medical histories, population distribution. Second, you will accept council oversight of your technological development. Certain technologies are restricted and must be approved before implementation. Third, you will contribute resources to the council's collective needs. 25% of your annual production across all sectors. Fourth, your military forces will be integrated into council defense structures. Your soldiers will serve where the council requires. Fifth, your laws and governance must align with council standards. Non-compliant systems will be reformed." The bridge fell silent. Elena read through the protocols, feeling disbelief turn to anger. This was not integration. This was subjugation dressed in diplomatic language. They were demanding control of every aspect of human civilization, from their bodies to their resources to their freedom to govern themselves. And Theln spoke of it as if it were routine, as if this was simply how things were done. And if we refuse? Elena asked quietly. Theln's 3 eyes focused on her with what might have been surprise. Refuse? You misunderstand, Captain. This is not an offer to be accepted or declined. This is the established order of galactic society. Every species that achieves interstellar capability undergoes integration. There are no exceptions. The alternative to integration is isolation. The Council will establish a quarantine around your system. No trade, no contact, no access to the greater galaxy. You will remain primitive and alone while the rest of civilization advances without you. Elena felt something crystallize inside her. She thought of Earth, of humanity's long struggle from caves to stars. She thought of every war fought for freedom, every revolution against tyranny, every person who had stood against oppression and said no. The words came easily, born from thousands of years of human history. Ambassador Theln, I must respectfully decline on behalf of humanity. We will not submit to your protocols. The silence that followed was absolute. Theln stood motionless, his glowing eyes fixed on Elena as if seeing her for the first time. When he finally spoke, his voice carried genuine confusion. You refuse the Council's authority? Captain, do you understand what you are saying? The Council has governed the galaxy for 12,000 years. We represent 17,000 species. Our combined military power could reduce your world to ash in moments. What gives you the audacity to refuse us? Elena smiled, though there was no humor in it. What gives us the audacity is that we have heard promises like yours before, Ambassador. Throughout our history, powerful entities have come to weaker peoples with offers of protection and civilization. They promised order and prosperity. What they delivered was chains and erasure. We have learned to recognize subjugation regardless of what language it speaks. She paused, letting her words sink in. You offer us a place in your galactic community, but only if we surrender our autonomy, our resources, our right to determine our own future. That is not community. That is empire. Theln's form seemed to darken, the shifting colors of his skin moving faster, more agitated. You compare the Council to primitives conquering primitives? We bring order to chaos, structure to randomness. Without the Council, the galaxy would tear itself apart in endless conflicts. We maintain peace. You maintain control, Elena countered. There is a difference. Peace that comes from freedom is worth having. Peace that comes from submission is just slavery with better marketing. She looked directly at the alien ambassador. Humanity will not join your Council under these terms. We will chart our own path. If that means isolation, we accept it. We have been alone before. We survived. We will survive again. The transmission ended abruptly. Theln's image vanished, leaving the bridge in darkness for a moment before the emergency lighting kicked in. James checked his sensors and reported what they all feared. Captain, the alien fleet is powering weapons. Energy signatures are spiking across all vessels. Elena made her decision in an instant. Activate emergency jump protocols. Plot a course directly back to Earth. Maximum speed. We need to warn them what is coming. Rachel's hands flew across her console. Captain, we have not finished calculations. Jumping without proper navigation data could send us anywhere. We could emerge inside a star or in deep interstellar space with no way home. Better that than staying here to be destroyed or captured, Elena said firmly. Engage jump drive. Now. The Pioneer's Dream's engine screamed to life. Space twisted around the ship as it accessed the quantum field that allowed faster-than-light travel. Just as 374 alien warships opened fire, the human vessel vanished in a flash of light and distorted reality, leaving the Council fleet firing on empty space. They emerged 6 days later, damaged but intact, in the outer reaches of the solar system. The journey back to Earth took another week, every moment spent preparing their report and recording everything they had learned about the Council and its demands. When they finally docked at Orbital Station Armstrong, Elena transmitted everything directly to the United Earth government. The response was swift. Within 24 hours, every nation on Earth had received the data. Within 48 hours, emergency sessions were convened in every capital. Within 72 hours, the world watched as Ambassador Theln's demands were broadcast on every network, translated into every language, shown to every human being on the planet. The reaction was not what the Council would have expected. There was no panic, no desperate calls for negotiation. Instead, something else emerged. A cold, unified anger. Humanity looked at the Council's demands and saw every historical injustice reflected back at them. Every empire that had demanded submission. Every conqueror who had promised peace through domination. Every tyrant who had claimed their control was for the greater good. The vote in the United Earth Assembly was unanimous. Earth would not submit. Earth would not negotiate under threat. Earth would stand alone if necessary, but it would stand free. The decision was broadcast on all frequencies, sent into deep space where the Council would certainly receive it. The message was simple and direct. Humanity rejected the Council's authority. Humanity would govern itself. Any attempt to enforce integration would be met with resistance. On the orbital defense platform Guardian 1, newly promoted Admiral Marcus Chen received his orders. He was 51 years old, a veteran of the resource wars that had nearly torn humanity apart 20 years earlier. He had seen what humans could do to each other. Now he would see what they could do united against an outside threat. His orders were clear. Prepare Earth's defenses. The Council would not accept humanity's refusal. They would come, and when they did, Earth needed to be ready. Across the planet, factories that had been idle sprang to life. Scientists who had competed for funding suddenly found themselves with unlimited resources. Military personnel who had trained for conflicts that might never come were mobilized. Humanity had 3 months before the Council's response arrived. 3 months to prepare for a war against an enemy that had never known defeat. Far away, on the Council's capital world of Nexus Prime, Ambassador Theln stood before the High Council and delivered his report. He spoke of the human refusal, of their defiance, of their complete rejection of established order. The Council members listened in stunned silence. In 12,000 years, no species had ever refused integration. Some had resisted initially, but all had eventually submitted when they understood the futility of defiance. High Chancellor Voreth, eldest of the Council, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. Prepare the persuasion fleet. 5,000 ships. We will show these humans the price of arrogance. They will learn what all species eventually learn. The Council's will is inevitable. As the orders went out and the greatest fleet in galactic history began to assemble, no one in that chamber understood what they had just set in motion. They saw humanity's refusal as ignorance that would be corrected through education, force if necessary. They did not understand that humanity had spent its entire existence fighting impossible odds. They did not understand that humans were most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. The stage was set. Earth and the Council, freedom and control, standing on opposite sides of a line that neither would cross. In 3 months, that line would be tested. In 3 months, the galaxy would discover what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object. In 3 months, everything would change. The price of freedom. 3 months had transformed Earth from a peaceful world reaching for the stars into a fortress bristling with weapons and determination. Every orbital platform had been reinforced. Every ship that could be armed had been converted for combat. Every person who could contribute had found their place in the vast machinery of defense. Humanity had looked at the impossible task before them and done what they always did. They worked until the impossible became merely improbable. Fleet Commander Marcus Chen stood in the command center of the newly constructed battle station Defiant, watching sensor displays that showed Earth's defensive perimeter. Around the planet, 1,500 warships held position in carefully planned formations. They were not elegant vessels like the Council's sleek warships. They were functional, built for one purpose, to fight and survive. Each ship carried weapons designed through desperate innovation, shields powered by reactors pushed beyond safe limits, and crews who knew exactly what they were defending. Marcus was a broad-shouldered man with gray threading through his black hair and eyes that had seen too much war. He had fought in the resource wars when humanity nearly destroyed itself over water and rare minerals. He had watched cities burn and civilians die because nations could not find common ground. That experience had taught him 2 things. First, humans were capable of terrible destruction. Second, when truly threatened, they could also unite like nothing else in the universe. Beside him stood Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's chief negotiator and arguably the most important person in the solar system. She was 45, small in stature but carrying herself with quiet authority that made people listen. Her role was unique. While Marcus prepared for war, Sarah prepared for the conversation that might prevent it. She had spent 3 months studying every scrap of information about the Council, learning their culture, their history, their psychology. She knew that if fighting could be avoided through words, it was her responsibility to find those words. The sensor officer called out, breaking the tense silence. "Commander, we have massive hyperspace signatures forming at the system's edge. Configuration matches Council warship profiles." He paused, his voice faltering slightly. "Sir, there are 5,000 of them. The entire persuasion fleet." Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but his voice remained steady. "All ships to battle stations. Activate all defensive platforms. Dr. Kim, they will want to talk first. Be ready." He looked at her, seeing his own fear reflected in her eyes. "If you can find a way to end this without bloodshed, take it." But do not surrender our freedom. That is not negotiable. Sarah nodded, moving to the communication station. She had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her mind, playing out every possible scenario. Now it was real. 5,000 warships had come to force humanity's submission, and she had to find words that would change the course of history. The Council fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, a display of military precision that took Marcus's breath away. Each ship was positioned exactly, moving with coordination that spoke of centuries of practice. At the center was the flagship Eternal Order, a vessel 3 times the size of Earth's largest warship. It was beautiful in a terrible way, designed not just for war but to inspire awe and dread in equal measure. The communication request came immediately. Sarah took a deep breath and accepted it. The screen filled with an image that made everyone in the command center freeze. The being before them was massive, easily 12 feet tall, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that burned with inner fire. For arms extended from its torso, each one carrying symbols of authority. Its head was crowned with a structure that might have been bone or metal, worked into intricate patterns that hurt to look at directly. "I am High Chancellor Voreth," the being said, its voice resonating through the command center like distant thunder. "I speak with the ultimate authority of the Galactic Council. 3 months ago, your Captain Voss refused our lawful integration protocols. This defiance cannot stand. I have come to correct this error and bring your species into compliance with galactic law." Sarah stepped forward, her voice calm despite the fear coursing through her veins. "High Chancellor Voreth, I am Dr. Sarah Kim, representing the United Earth Government. We acknowledge receipt of your integration protocols. We have considered them carefully and consulted with every nation and people on our world. Our answer remains unchanged. We decline." Voretha's burning eyes fixed on her with an intensity that felt physical. "You decline. Dr. Kim, do you understand what stands before you? 5,000 warships representing the combined military might of the Galactic Council. We have ended rebellions that lasted centuries. We have brought order to sectors torn apart by chaos. What makes you believe your small fleet can resist us?" Sarah met his gaze without flinching. "We do not believe we can defeat you in conventional warfare, High Chancellor. Your fleet outnumbers ours more than 3 to 1. Your technology is proven across millennia while ours is barely decades old. By every military calculation, we should surrender immediately." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "But there is something you need to understand about humanity. We do not make decisions based solely on military calculations. We make them based on principles that we consider more important than survival." Voretha's expression, alien as it was, showed something like curiosity. "Explain these principles that matter more than existence itself." Sarah nodded, choosing her words with care. "Throughout our history, High Chancellor, humans have faced a choice. Submit to powerful entities who promised security in exchange for freedom, or resist and risk everything. Sometimes we chose submission. Those are the darkest chapters of our history, times we look back on with shame and regret. The times we are proud of, the moments that define us as a species, are the times we chose to resist." She gestured to the planet below. "Every person on that world knows what your protocols demand. You want our genetic data, control of our technology, our resources, our military, our right to govern ourselves. You present this as reasonable, as simply how civilized society functions." "It is how civilized society functions," Voreth interrupted. "The Council maintains order across 17,000 species. We prevent conflicts before they begin. We ensure resources are distributed efficiently. We protect primitive species from exploitation by more advanced ones. The galaxy would descend into chaos without our guidance." "Perhaps," Sarah conceded. "But that guidance comes at a price. The price is autonomy. The price is the right of species to make their own mistakes and learn from them. The price is freedom." She leaned forward slightly. "You say you protect primitive species from exploitation. But who protects them from you? Your protocols demand 25% of our production. You claim authority over our technological development. You would integrate our military into your forces, sending our people to fight in conflicts we had no voice in starting. How is that different from exploitation?" Voretha's forearms moved in what might have been a gesture of dismissal. "We do not exploit. We govern. There is a fundamental difference. The resources we collect fund infrastructure that benefits all species. The technology we regulate prevents catastrophic accidents that could destroy entire worlds. The military integration ensures peace is maintained." "Peace through domination," Sarah said quietly. "High Chancellor, I have studied your council's history. I have read accounts from dozens of species you have integrated. Do you know what I found? After integration, species stop innovating. They stop pushing boundaries. They become comfortable but stagnant. Their cultures slowly fade as they adopt council standards. Within a few generations, they become indistinguishable from any other council species. They lose what made them unique. They gain stability, Vorith countered. They gain access to technology and knowledge beyond their wildest dreams. They gain protection from external threats. What is cultural uniqueness compared to these benefits? Sarah's voice hardened. Everything. Cultural uniqueness is everything. It is what makes a species worth preserving in the first place. You offer us the galaxy, but only if we stop being human. We refuse that bargain. The tension in the command center was suffocating. Marcus watched the exchange, his hand hovering near the weapon's authorization control. Every instinct told him this conversation was heading toward violence, but he held back, trusting Sarah to do what she did best. Voritha's burning eyes dimmed slightly, and when he spoke again, his tone had changed. Less authority, more genuine confusion. Why? I truly do not understand. Your species is young, barely emerged from your own world. We offer you a place among the stars, protection from dangers you cannot even imagine, knowledge that would advance your civilization by thousands of years. We offer you survival and prosperity. Why would you choose isolation and potential extinction instead? Sarah was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of human history. Because, High Chancellor, we have learned that survival without dignity is not worth the price. We have seen what happens when people trade freedom for security. They become hollow, going through the motions of life without truly living. You offer us everything except the right to be ourselves, to make our own choices, to fail and learn and grow on our own terms. That is not an offer. That is a cage, and no matter how comfortable a cage might be, it is still a cage. Then you are fools, Vorith said, his voice returning to its earlier hardness. You choose death over wisdom. Very well. The Council will respect your choice, but you will also face its consequences. I am authorized to use force to bring your species into compliance. This is your final opportunity. Submit now, or we will demonstrate why resistance to the Council is futile. Marcus stepped forward, standing beside Sarah. His military bearing was unmistakable, a sharp contrast to her diplomatic approach. High Chancellor, if you attack us, we will defend ourselves. You may win. Probably will win. But it will cost you. Every ship you lose, every life extinguished, will be on your conscience. Is forcing us to obey really worth that price? Voritha's expression hardened into something like contempt. You think to threaten the Council? Your weapons are primitive. Your tactics untested. Your crews inexperienced. I could reduce your fleet to debris in hours. What makes you think you can impose any cost on us at all? Marcus smiled, though there was no warmth in it. Because we are not fighting for territory or resources, High Chancellor. We are fighting for our home. For our freedom. For everything that matters to us. That makes us more dangerous than you understand. We will use tactics you consider dishonorable. We will sacrifice ships you would retreat to save. We will fight with a desperation that your crews, comfortable in their superiority, cannot match. You will win. But you will bleed. The communication fell silent. Vorith stared at them both, his alien features unreadable. Finally, he spoke, and his voice carried something like respect. You are brave, I will grant you that. Foolish, but brave. I will give you one standard hour to reconsider. After that, I will order the attack. Use this time wisely. Think of your families, your children, your world. Think of what you are throwing away for the sake of pride. The transmission ended. The command center erupted in activity as officers began final preparations for battle. Marcus turned to Sarah, seeing exhaustion in her eyes. You did everything you could, he said quietly. No one can say we did not try diplomacy. Sarah shook her head. It was never going to work. They cannot comprehend a species refusing what they consider a generous offer. To them, we are children throwing a tantrum, refusing medicine because it tastes bad. They genuinely believe they are helping us. Does that make them better or worse? Marcus asked. Neither. It makes them tragic. They have power and good intentions, but they lack the wisdom to understand that what they are doing is wrong. They cannot see that forced cooperation is just another form of tyranny. The hour passed in preparation and anticipation. Every human in the fleet knew what was coming. They had said goodbye to their loved ones, made peace with their choices. When the timer reached 0, Voritha's image returned to the screen. Your hour has expired, the High Chancellor said. What is your answer? Sarah stood tall, her voice clear and unwavering. Humanity refuses the Galactic Council's integration protocols. We claim the right to self-determination. We will defend that right with everything we have. This is our final answer. Vorith nodded slowly, almost sadly. Then may whatever gods you believe in have mercy on your souls. All ships, demonstrate the consequences of defiance. Target the outer colonies. Minimal force. Show them what resistance costs. Marcus's blood ran cold. The outer colonies were mining stations and research outposts, lightly defended, populated by civilians and families. You would attack non-combatants? He shouted. What kind of civilized society targets civilians? One that has learned that half measures prolong conflicts, Voreth replied coldly. We do not seek to kill. We seek to teach. Watch and understand the price of your choice. On the sensor displays, a detachment of Council ships broke formation and headed toward the asteroid belt where Earth's outer colonies clustered. 200 warships, more than enough to overwhelm the small defense forces stationed there. Marcus made his decision instantly. All ships, intercept course. Maximum speed. We do not abandon our people. The Earth fleet surged forward, engines burning at maximum output. They knew it was a trap, knew the Council was dividing their forces, but they had no choice. Humanity's defining characteristic had always been the inability to abandon their own. It was both their greatest strength and their most exploitable weakness. The battle began in the asteroid belt, among the rocks and ice where humans had built their first extraplanetary settlements. Council ships opened fire with weapons that could vaporize asteroids, but Earth's forces responded with tactics born of desperation and innovation. They used the asteroids as cover, employed guerrilla hit-and-run attacks, sacrificed ships to protect civilians. It was chaos, brutal and desperate, and humans fought with a ferocity that shocked the Council forces. Commander Chen led the Defiant into the heart of the engagement. His ship took massive damage, shields failing, hull breached in a dozen places, but he kept fighting. Around him, human ships fell like stars going dark, but they took Council vessels with them. The exchange rate was terrible, 3 human ships for every Council vessel destroyed, but they were making the enemy pay. On the Eternal Order, High Chancellor Voreth watched his tactical displays with growing concern. The humans should have been routed by now, scattered and fleeing. Instead, they fought with coordinated desperation, their ships working together in ways his tactical computers could not predict. They seemed to anticipate his moves, responding to strategies before he fully implemented them. His forces were winning, but slower than projected, and casualties were mounting beyond acceptable projections. High Chancellor, his tactical officer reported, the human fleet is using the asteroid field to negate our numerical advantage. They are employing unconventional tactics. Ramming attacks, kamikaze runs, proximity detonations of their own reactors. Our crews are hesitant to match their aggression. Voreth felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Doubt. These humans were losing, clearly and decisively, but they were making victory expensive. Every ship he lost represented years of construction, trained crews, resources. The humans seemed willing to throw everything away for brief tactical advantages. It was insane. It was effective. Pull back the forward elements, he ordered. Regroup and establish firing lines. We will win through superior firepower and discipline, not by matching their madness. As the Council ships withdrew to regroup, Marcus seized the opportunity. All civilian transports, evacuate now. Jump coordinates are being transmitted. Go. We will buy you time. He turned to his communication officer. Broadcast on all frequencies, Council channels included. I want them to hear this. The channel opened, and Marcus spoke words that would be remembered for generations. People of the galaxy, this is Fleet Commander Marcus Chen of Earth. Today the Galactic Council attacked our colonies because we refused to surrender our freedom. They say they bring civilization and order. I say they bring chains dressed as gifts. They have superior numbers and technology, and they will probably destroy us. But we die free, on our terms, defending what we believe in. To any species listening who lives under Council rule and wonders if there is an alternative, remember us. Remember that resistance is possible. Remember that freedom is worth any price. And remember that the Council can be hurt. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, billions of beings from hundreds of species heard those words. Most dismissed them as the desperate ravings of a doomed species. But some, a small number, felt something stir inside them. A question they had never dared ask. What if the Council is wrong? The battle for the asteroid belt continued for 6 hours. In the end, the Council forces secured the area, but at a cost that stunned their high command. They had lost 98 ships. 98 vessels destroyed or crippled by a primitive species using inferior technology and sheer determination. The human fleet was devastated, reduced to fewer than 400 operational ships, but they had accomplished their goal. Every civilian transport had escaped. High Chancellor Voreth stood on his bridge, looking at casualty reports that should not exist. He had commanded the Persuasion fleet for 200 years. He had never lost more than a handful of ships in any engagement. Now he had lost nearly 100 to humans who should have been swept aside like dust. He reached a decision that would change everything. "Open a channel to Earth," he commanded. "I will speak with Dr. Kim again." When Sarah's face appeared on screen, Vorith saw something in her eyes he had not noticed before. Not fear or triumph, but sorrow. She had watched hundreds of her people die, had sent them to die with her words. That burden showed in every line of her face. "Dr. Kim," Vorith said slowly, "I underestimated your species. I believed you were simply ignorant of galactic realities. I was wrong. You understand perfectly. You simply refuse to accept them." "Yes," Sarah said simply. "I have orders to conquer your world," Vorith continued. "I have sufficient forces to accomplish this. But the cost would be measured in thousands of ships and tens of thousands of lives. I begin to question whether that cost serves the Council's interests." Sarah leaned forward. "Then withdraw. Leave us alone. We do not threaten you. We ask only to be left in peace to find our own way." Vorith was silent for a long moment. "I cannot do that. The Council's authority must be maintained. If we allow one species to defy us, others will follow. The order we have built over millennia would crumble. But perhaps there is another way." He paused. "The Council will withdraw from this system. We will establish your desired isolation. No contact, no trade, no integration. You will have your freedom." "At what cost?" Sarah asked suspiciously. "The cost is simple. You will remain within your system. Any human vessel that crosses into Council space will be destroyed without warning. You will have your independence, but it will be an independence of exile. The galaxy will move forward without you. In 1,000 years, you will still be here, isolated and alone, while the rest of civilization advances beyond your comprehension. That is the price of your defiance." Sarah looked at Marcus, who nodded slowly. It was not what they wanted, but it was better than the alternative. "We accept," Sarah said. "Humanity will remain within our system. We will not seek contact with the Council or Council space. In return, you leave us alone." "Agreed," Vorith said. "Let it be recorded that Earth has chosen exile over integration. May you find whatever wisdom you seek in your isolation." He paused one final time. "Dr. Kim, one last question. Was it worth it? All those lives lost today. Was your freedom worth that price?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. "Ask me in 100 years, High Chancellor. Ask me when we have built a civilization on our own terms, without masters or overlords. Ask me when our children grow up knowing that their destiny belongs to them, not to some distant council. Then I will tell you if it was worth it." The transmission ended. The Council fleet began its withdrawal, jumping to hyperspace in perfect formation. They left behind wreckage and the bodies of the fallen, both human and alien. As they departed, every species in the galaxy received a message from the Council. Earth had been quarantined. Contact was forbidden. Humanity would live in isolation or die in obscurity. But something else happened that day. On worlds across the galaxy, beings looked at their own situations differently. They had watched a primitive species stand against the Council and survive. They had seen that resistance was possible, that the Council could be hurt, that freedom might be achievable. These were dangerous thoughts, seeds that would grow in darkness and silence. On Earth, people mourned their dead and celebrated their survival. They had paid a terrible price, but they had won something precious. The right to determine their own future. Fleet Commander Marcus Chen stood at the window of his damaged ship, looking at Earth hanging in space below. They would rebuild. They would grow stronger. And someday, when they were ready, they would venture out again. But this time, they would do it as equals, not supplicants. Dr. Sarah Kim drafted the official history of First Contact, ensuring that future generations would understand the choice their ancestors had made and the price they had paid. She ended her account with simple words that captured everything humanity believed. "We stood alone because we refused to kneel. We suffered because we valued freedom more than comfort. We survived because we chose to fight rather than submit. This is what it means to be human." Across the galaxy, those words spread like wildfire, translated into 1,000 languages, whispered in secret meetings, inspiring dreams of liberation. The Council had granted Earth isolation, but they could not isolate an idea. The idea that freedom was worth fighting for. The idea that even the mighty could be resisted. The idea that the future belonged not to the strong, but to the brave. The Galactic Council had tried to negotiate with humanity and failed. They had tried to intimidate and been defied. They had tried to punish and been hurt in return. In the end, they had granted what humanity wanted most. Independence. They thought it was a punishment, exile from the greater community. Humanity saw it as a gift, the chance to grow on their own terms. The stage was set for a future where humans and the galaxy would meet again, but next time the meeting would be between equals. The Council did not yet understand what they had unleashed. By trying to force humanity's submission, they had inspired resistance across countless worlds. By granting isolation, they had given humanity time to prepare for the day when they would return not as refugees seeking acceptance, but as a power demanding respect. That day was coming, and when it arrived, the galaxy would never be the same.